Welcome everyone to Conquer the Clutter podcast for this July the 24th. Um, no, you were not the only one who did not get the live link for this week. I got busy off site with a client in crisis and forgot to ask Amber to send it out. Amber must have been very busy herself because she didn't send me a reminder. So thank you everyone for showing up today and participating. So we're going to do a tiny review just so that we're starting off with the right foundation material to understand that next step of about habituation. And I want to remind everyone, we're working from this fabulous little book by Brianna Wiest, The Mountain is You. All right. And I've said this every week since we've been working with self-sabotage, which is basically the topic of The Mountain is You. It's a little book worth investing in because it's not one of those easy, just wade through it, read it, it's over. It's an intelligently written book that is designed to ask you the questions that you most need to ask yourself, and then guide you in some ways, not quite like a workbook, to fill in the blanks about the ways in which you find yourself derailed by that term that is used quite often called self-sabotage. All right. Basically, however, when we're talking about self-sabotage, we're talking about habituating. All right. Now, we've done a lot of talk on a lot of podcasts about how the brain works and how it is really not the most intelligent organ we have in our body, but it is a great computer that will pull up the most oft used resources and strategies, therefore somewhat limited as well, not necessarily creative in the ways we need a boost. So we're going to talk about habituation, and I'm just going to remind you of some key points. Then we're going to move on with the material for today. When we habituate, our purpose always is to act in our own best interest, all right? To move us forward in some way that is important enough for us, given the goal we're seeking. And it also moves us forward with actions that we repeat. And the more we repeat those actions, good, bad, or indifferent, the more they become the choices that that computer part of our brain is going to seek and offer us. For you have a problem, this is what you've done most often in the past. So this is probably what you want this time. And regardless of the outcome or results, if you kept choosing it, your brain is the easy path of your brain just assumes that you know pretty much what you're doing. And that if you keep using this strategy or this skill or this behavior choice, that's yielding you what you most want, or you wouldn't go back and repeat it again. All right. So when we repeat those choices, we call them skills quite often, whether they are or not. They are certainly repeat behaviors. When we habituate those choices, however, they become the go-to. We are more likely to be held back in our life. All right. Because what worked in one situation is not necessarily the best choice for another situation. And when we just repeat, we're basically marching in place. And that is something that common parlance calls self-sabotage. So let's talk about it from Brianna Weist's point of observation. She offers the thought, and I firmly believe it, which is why I'm explaining it to you today. All right, that self-sabotage is actually when we have two conflicting desires. All right. You can call them goals, you can call them objectives, you can call them anything you want, but they are things that at some level they're important enough that you want. Now, one of those choices, all right, is conscious. We're aware of what it is we're seeking. But we always have a subconscious as well, conscious and a subconscious, right? The other desire or part of that desire, the unknown, all right, is unconscious. We are not necessary. We're not first and foremost aware. We really have to dig for what that is, all right? So you know how when you want to move forward in your life, all right, and yet you still feel like you're being held back. There's that, where do I put my next foot? What's next? All right. Now, when you have, and when you continue to do that, that kind of breeds a seemingly insurmountable something, we'll call it issue, all right, in our life. So I want you right now to put this in practical, real today terms, all right? And I want you to think about a goal that you have. And I want you to measure what we're saying today as it fits with your goal. So it needs to be big enough that it's actually on the to-do list. The desire, the wish for it, the desire is ongoing. This is not sort of a new, oh, let's just try something new. All right, this is something that is a goal. And you probably have made a foray into trying to achieve it in the past or some reasonable part of it. And you're not having the most luck. You're not satisfied with the success, the progress that you're making, which means that in some ways, you may be experiencing it to some degree as an insurmountable issue, all right, in your life. Now, especially that feeling of insurmountability, that it's bigger than it seems to be bigger than I am. I don't know why. I don't know what gets in the way. You know, that confusion when you keep wanting it, you keep intending to achieve. So that happens especially when the solution seems simple and easy. And yet your ability to conquer it, to achieve it, to have it, to be able to access it seems impossible, possible to stick with. All right. So when that happens, and it repeatedly happens, it's not about it being insurmountable. It's not about it being not achievable. It's actually not about it being a problem. What you have in those instances aren't big insurmountable problems, but what they are big attachments. The question is, to what? Because if it feels insurmountable, I think logic just dictates that whatever you're committed to, whatever you're attached to, whatever you are repeating and habituating, all right, isn't getting you where you want to go. So what is that thing that's in the way? And it often feels like it's kind of hidden or a mystery, or we basically, all right, know this. I'm going to repeat this from last week because it's true. We basically do fundamentally whatever we want to do. And with very few exceptions, all right, that's true. The one exception is if we are living with some degree of cognitive impairment. So regardless of the potential consequences, all right, and sometimes we know, this didn't work out that well last time, but I'm going to give it another go exactly the same way, okay? Our nature is self-serving. Our mind, our body, our energy is always trying to make us happy or satisfied or pleasured, right? So as human beings, you, me, and everybody else, we do pretty much whatever we feel compelled to do, right? Regardless of who it affects, positively or negatively. Now, when you begin to realize that if you keep something in your life, this can be clutter, this can be people, this can be anything. If you're keeping something in your life, people, there has to be a reason. There has to be a reason you want it there. The only question is, why aren't we figuring out and motivating ourselves enough to facilitate the goals we have, to make them happen? All right. Why aren't we putting into effect what we imagine we want? Anybody out there have a good answer? Well, I just said we pretty much do what we want. All right. We pretty much do what gives us the most positive feedback. Could it be that at the same time we're setting this goal, this achievement, this thing we are committing ourselves to wanting, is it possible not realizing that we possibly have a different competing belief? Right? So two things are happening simultaneously. Now I'm going to call, in our mind, we have our conscious, what we're aware of, what we know, what we can see, what we can identify, conscious. Okay, we got it. But we also have our subconscious. And those are the things that have all the driftwood sitting in them, all the rejects, all the things that didn't work, all the pain, all the trauma, all the things that get in our way. They're still with us, okay? Not to the same degree they were when we experienced them first, but they're still there. The effects, the details are in our subconscious. So if we have a competing, I want, but I can't reach, how many people here believe that at some level, there must be something that feels safer, more reachable and achievable, not as risky? We know how to do it. We know the steps to get to this place we don't really want to be, but you know what? It's not all that bad, right? Because we're still going to tell ourselves we want it. How many people believe that that subconscious really sometimes speaks louder than what we're aware of? You're right. All right. So quite often there's that competing belief that being successful at whatever this goal is, that's specific, I've asked you specifically to write down today and focus on, all right? That reaching that goal is actually, in some ways, we can't quite manage a negative. There are negative aspects to it that we haven't resolved. And so we've got this competing belief system Yeah, we want to move forward. No, not right now. We're not sure. Okay, what would that look like? What would be expected of me? Go back to the procrastination book by Jane Burke and Lenora Ewan. Fear of success, fear of failure, fear of being controlled. We can generally find ourselves somewhere on one or more of those continuums. That's not reality. That's fear. All right. That's fear. That's insecurity, uncertainty. Not the worst place to be, but certainly not a great place to be if you're not going to turn the lights on. Turn the lights on, people. All right. Turn the lights on and have an honest look at it. You don't have to take it off the shelf and think, okay, now today I'm going to solve this insurmountable fear I have, this detracting energy, right? No, I'm not, but I'm sure going to look at you and I'm sure going to work with Elaine to name you. All right. You get a name. All right. Because first of all, I have to know what that competing thing is inside me. I have to hear it. I have to respect that it's true, that it's there. And I also then have to find and develop skills and strategies to make it less onerous so it doesn't defeat me and hold me back. It will always probably be there, but now it's not a boulder, it's a pebble. Okay. Not to do that leaves you in a status mentally, emotionally, physically, cognitively, all right, that you can't actually commit. You're not actually even the majority owner, all right, of I want to do it. And remember, it is true. When you're not succeeding, when you're bumping your head, stop. Stop, whatever it is, just stop. Respect yourself and think, you know what? What I need to do right now is I need to slow down and I need to ask myself, what's in the way? I don't have to do anything about it right now, but I do want that goal. And this or these things that are in my subconscious, the competing beliefs, often they're fears, all right? Or they are reminders of when you tried it before and you didn't succeed well enough. Or they're voices from the committee. You were never good at that. You know, I told you. Oh, you know, the naysayer on the committee. All right. For those people who are just joining us, this brilliant group that I work with every week, all right, developed a concept called the committee. And the committee are the voices in your head. And there are always some key partners. One of them is the naysayer. All right. And one of them is the coach. And then there are other voices as well. All right. So, how do you get from not sure to want to put down the habituated competing beliefs and start working on what you imagine is possible for you? It's not a dream, it's possible. You just haven't scoped out exactly what the plan is step by step to get there. Because not achieving that goal sometimes supports us to feel secure. Right? Sometimes we talk ourselves out of the goal. Sometimes we talk ourselves out of our ability. Sometimes we settle on our readiness. Now, for sure, when we've got these competing beliefs, all right, fighting within us for dominance, for sure, we're at a point of insecure readiness. That's okay. Stay there. Right? The more unlikely it feels that you can take that next step forward, all right, the more we need to use that secondary, that compromise dream, that compromise goal as a fallback. It's not a bad thing to do if that compromise goal is one small step forward on a likely path to build confidence, to build an experience of success, of enough success. All right. All right. Not to pause and remain in contact with our capability, our true desire for what the goal we want to achieve is. We keep it in our mind's eye. Not to do that, to somehow turn that experience into a negative about ourselves, our capabilities, our history, our worth. All right. Don't go there. When you find yourself going there, remind yourself this is a step on the path to where you want and will be. Because if you remain in that negative mindset, it'll come to mind. There's always a negative bias, all right? But you need to put that thing to sleep right away, all right? Pack it up and just, that is not what this is. Because to stay there sucks away the energy, sucks away the motivation, all right? Sucks away the belief. Depending on what else is going on in your life, positively, negatively, neutrally, all right, it upsets the energy balance, the readiness balance, all right? So yes, Michael, start with the easiest task, but if you have an objective and a goal and it's important that that easiest task is on the path to where you're headed. It isn't a distraction. All right, that's the difference, okay? All right. So the other thing, and how many people have found this out? Think about your goal right now. I hope you've got it written down. And then ask yourself, how many times have you gotten distracted? All right. And in that distraction, you used up the time, energy, motivation, focus, and you didn't actually even contribute to logging the hours of work that it would take to get there. Right now, I want you to stop and I want you to write down beside that goal, all right, one thing you do that fits into that distraction, sucks away the focus, sucks away the energy, sucks away the importance. You're telling yourself a whole different narrative then. Oh, well, I'll come back to it. That's okay to do that after you've made that one small step forward. You've contributed to the path you need to be on in order to finally get there. It's okay to take a rest. It's okay to be occupied otherwise after you've proved to yourself that you can make one small step forward on that path that is so important to you. Because what you're really doing is you're proving to yourself what your pace is. You're not changing the direction. You're not on a different path. You're not distracted. You're not spending energy that you actually need for your achievement of that goal. You're not frittering away. All right. You're establishing what your pace is. And every person here today has a different pace depending on what the objective is. And you need to respect that pace. Your pace may change. There may be other things locked in. You keep your eye on the ball. And maybe it's a smaller step you take today, but it is a step forward. Never quit. Never go somewhere else consciously, all right, before you take one more small step forward on the path to where you most want to be. All right. So we can get overwhelmed as we seek the path forward on our goals. All right. And if we don't pace ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all right, our energy, our spirit, sometimes it can feel like that goal is a threat. All right. Like somehow it's bigger than we are. And depending on what else is going on in your life, context is everything. Every day you show up to put a paving stone down on that path to your goal, context is everything. You are not the same person showing up every day. You're not. You can't be. All right. Or you're asleep. All right. You have to be asleep if you're the same person every day, because every day brings new possibilities, new challenges. All right. So that first goal doesn't become a threat, because when it does, we're going to be looking long and hard for self-sabotaging behaviors. All right. And we have to understand that sometimes it's easy. It's easier, all right, to get attached to having problems. Sometimes that's the gate that will open most easily for us. Oh, I had a problem and I had to remember what I'm saying right now. No matter what the problem, if you're still conscious, before you move in any other direction other than forward with that goal that is so important to you, you make one small step forward before you change paths. And you come back to that path at that point the next time you have availability. All right. Being successful, know this is true. Being successful can make us more vulnerable. Have you ever thought about that? And when that happens, when that starts to happen, procrastinating, if that's what it is, puts us back in a safe, known place. We know it. It's comfortable. It's safe. We know the rules. We know the steps. All the ways in which we're self-sabotaging are actually ways that we feel and need something we probably don't realize. We have overcome it. All right. We've overcome it. Life is not just a matter of learning to understand yourself better, but realizing that our problems are not actually problems. They're symptoms. They're symptoms we can't get rid of. All right. Because in that being self-sabotaging, we are developing coping mechanisms. Right. And we believe those other behaviors, those other choices, we believe those coping mechanisms, all right, are going to help us to solve the problem. Oh, by the way, Coco says hello. She's having a little dream here. It's being picked up on the audio, no doubt. She says hello. You're in her dreams. As soon as she knows I'm going to do this podcast, all right, she has a sense. She comes in and she grabs her bed in the corner and you can't get her out of it. And then sometimes she gets bored and falls asleep and snores like a trucker. So all that to say, it's a little challenge, but we shall succeed. All right. It's impossible to say universally what self-sabotage is going to look like for you. But here are some specific behaviors and patterns of behavior that are more typically indicative of self-sabotage, right? Now, they usually relate to being aware that there's a problem. These kick in when you have that little niggling suspicion of, oh, this isn't going so well. Got a problem. We have a problem, Houston. Yet you still feel the need to repeat whatever that problem choice is. It's not yielding you success, but it's the best you kind of have. You know, if you think of a hand of cards, it's your best card at that time that you can be aware of. So here are some of the main signs that you're probably entering or in a cycle of self-sabotage. The first is resistance, right? Now, resistance is what happens when we have a new project, generally something that's unfamiliar, more unfamiliar to us. And we know we need to work on it. It's actually going to require effort, okay? We simply can't bring ourselves to do it. We just can't seem to get started, right? That's when we get into a place where we keep finding reasons to distract ourselves. All right. We keep finding hiccups. You're cleaning the kitchen, and before you know it, you go to put something away. And there's something about cleaning the kitchen that just is not the most palatable thing right now, but it's urgently in need of being done. And 2 hours later, you find yourself having perfectly organized the knives, forks, and spoons drawer. Anybody done that? Anybody done that? Okay. So that's what we're talking about. Okay. Bailing on your plan. You know that work is needed. You know it's important, but you just can't get started. So it's when we get an amazing idea for something. All right. And we feel the tension. We feel a little bit of anger too, a little bit of resentment that this great thing is actually going to require work we don't want to do. Okay. And the tasks you have to start with are never the glorious tasks that give you a rewarding feeling. They're the grunge. You have to clear away the grunge before you get to the great. Okay. That's just the way it is with some of these projects. So you start feeling a little bit of internal resentment, anger. And when it comes time to sit down and actually get to the work, you just become a little bit aware of that kind of that child in you, that say, I don't want to clean my room. I don't want to. I'm an adult. I don't have to, whatever that resistance is about. But it's resistance in the face of what is going right. You've taken on this project because your life is settled enough that this is the next step. All right. So that resistance happens when we start getting on track. Okay? It generally doesn't happen when things are going wrong. You ever notice? You don't feel a lot of resistance when things are going wrong. Do you? But you do feel resistance when you have to start carving a new path. That's why that expression, starting is always the hardest part. That's why. It's that little resistance. But remember that the resistance is also tied to, generally, when we're starting something, generally that's not on a well-paved path. That there's unknown, there's uncertainty, there are all the uns that we need to establish, we need to do, we need to achieve, we need to overcome. Is it surprising that starting is the hardest part? Does that surprise anybody here? It's not just one of those fluky little things, or it's part of what is required of us. We're on new turf. All right. It isn't comfortable. We're not on autopilot. So resistance is usually nowhere to be found when we are on a well, everything's going swell. Generally, we don't feel resistance there. All right. How many people have found that they really need to tap into a part of themselves that's hard to reach? All right. When they are trying their best to thrive, to move on to the next step. It's not sort of just basic survival. Everybody gets up. Everybody has something to eat in a day. Everybody, there are certain basics, right? You can kind of coast through that. Where does your resistance kick in? What are the kinds of things that when they start to be required of you, or you're requiring them of yourself, really, nobody else is really requiring them, that you start to look sideways rather than straight ahead? Remember that thriving instead of surviving is unfamiliar territory, because we're generally, I want you to think of it as going for a hike, all right? And you're surviving as you're going up the hill. When you get to the top of the hill and you're looking out over the countryside, all right, there's a feeling of accomplishment, but there also is, what's the next step? What is the next safe step? And whenever the next step feels unfamiliar, all right, you're not sure of what it is. You're not sure of your capability to do it. You're not sure of how to do it exactly and achieve and continue your success. Anybody find that that's when you get a little bit of the heebie-jeebies? Yeah. Not unusual. How do we resolve this? First of all, understand and respect that resistance is just our own unique way of slowing down. Nothing wrong with that. Pace is everything. Respecting your pace is everything. And in slowing down, making sure for us, according to our readiness, according to our capabilities, according to what we know to be true and safe, it's actually safe to get attached to that new thing, that new way of thinking, that new approach, that new skill, that new tool, that new whatever. And resistance can also be a warning sign. You don't want to give into it, but you do want to listen to it. All right. A warning sign that something in our appreciation of what is in front of us and what we need to do next, something just isn't quite right. Right. And we might need to stand down or stay still or take a step back. We might need to regroup, not give up, not back up, not go watch Netflix. Just, okay, let me just get my bearings here. I call it getting my bearings. Okay, this is unfamiliar to me. What is it exactly? What is it exactly? And what is it through my eyes? Because I can only bring my skills, my perspective, and my needs to this thing. So it isn't like a universal truth. It's okay, how does Elaine assess this? What does it mean to me? And what have I got in my toolkit to begin to deal with that? And what is seriously missing from the toolkit? All right, in order to deal with that, in which case I better slow down until I find whatever it is that I think I need, I believe I need, but I'm slowing down, I'm not stopping. Resistance isn't the same thing as procrastination or indifference. It's not the same thing. Resistance is that little alarm bell, that little whoa, 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 just a second, have another look. Let's slow down here. Okay, what is really happening here? What does it mean for me? What do I have to offer? A solution. Of the required elements to solve this thing. All right. Now, if I didn't get enough sleep last night, I'm probably going to burn out. All right. If I've got 100 other worries in my mind, all right, or I'm living with ADHD and I find myself, we started out in the kitchen and we ended up in the front hall. All right, a little distracted. I have to bring myself back. All right. Context is everything. You've got to respect it. Do not judge yourself, but catch yourself and get yourself back on the track that is the best next step. All right. So when we're experiencing resistance, listen to me. Everybody listening? When you're experiencing resistance, there's a reason. You're not making it up. Pay attention. Because if we try to force ourselves forward to perform whatever, like perform the big act in the face of resistance, it's only going to intensify your insecurity, your discomfort. All right. Now, comfort level necessary to move forward does not need to be kumbaya, right? We're not holding hands singing kumbaya, and it's wonderful, you know. It means that you feel safe and you feel ready enough. So if you try to perform without awareness of what that resistance is all about for you, unique to you, you're actually breaking through the strength you have and putting yourself in an unprepared, quasi unsafe, unfamiliar. Pace is everything. Because when we strengthen that internal conflict, that insecurity, that you know what resistance feels like, all right? What we're actually doing is triggering fear. Now, there doesn't have to necessarily be anything insurmountable that the resistance is about. It could be perfectly doable. It just doesn't feel doable to you in that moment with that level of preparedness. Stay where you are and get yourself prepared for the next step. All right, what are your needs? It's triggering a fear. You know that competing belief we talked about earlier? All right, you know that competing, we have a belief and then there's a competing belief. Oh, maybe I can, maybe I can't. Okay, we're triggering the fear that's holding you back in the first place. That's what resistance is about. There's something insecure about, I'm not saying you're insecure, I'm saying your readiness and preparedness feels insecure in some way. So instead of diving deep into it and forcing your way through it, all right, progress requires us to pace ourselves. That's the word for the day today, people, pace. All right. Requires us to refocus. What is it about this? Now, I had a conversation, I had an email from somebody I know, and I had to do this earlier this morning. I had this email, and I'm thinking, I don't know why I really don't feel good here right now. This is just like, And so I did all of these steps to come up with my understanding of what that message was actually about. And I made some decisions, but I wouldn't have made as appropriate decisions if I reacted or if I just put it away. Progress requires us to refocus and get clear about what we we want, not what is the right answer, not what somebody else would do, but what we want, as well as when and why we want it. Maybe I do want to achieve that goal, but maybe I've just realized that the when isn't immediate. The when means as I pace myself and face other hurdles along the way that this goal represents for me. And why do I want that? Why do I want that? Not why is this the right answer? That's why I say when we're doing remediations, I don't care what you pay me. I am not going in and doing an emergency cleanup that turns the place around like flip. You know why? Because you will completely destabilize the other person. As noxious as that environment has become, all right, and that person is unhappy and to some degree unsafe living in it, there is a normalcy that develops. There is a familiarity. And you can turn it around to make it look like Better Homes and Gardens and feel like a big success, like they do on the television. And that's why I've turned down the Dr. Oz show. I've turned down Hoarding Buried Alive. I've turned down the Canadian Hoarding show, is because you don't do that to people. Okay, slow and steady wins the race. Because you know what? 6 months from now, place will be back exactly, and that will be a horrible defeat for that person. We have to identify unconscious beliefs that we have. These aren't deep and profound necessarily, but they are the little itchy points that need scratching before we comfortably move forward and can keep moving forward. Okay? Because those unconscious beliefs, they are hanging out in the wings of our thinking. It's like there's a performance on stage. Those unconscious beliefs are in the wings of our thinking, and they're preventing us from showing up. And then we have to step forward into the work. Once we get them figured out, either quieten them or subdue them by recognition or subdue them, the contrary beliefs, unconscious beliefs. We handle them by solving, by becoming comfortable, or by acknowledging them and factoring them into how we approach and the pace we approach at. We have to factor them in order to move forward. And then we still have to do the work. Okay? When we prepare ourselves to feel and be ready, wanting is the door that opens. It's funny how the things that seemed insurmountable at the time, all right, it's like the door swings open and we can see what that next step on the path is. After resistance of hitting that upper limit. Now, there's another concept before we close today I want to give you, I want to present to you, and I want you to think about it this week coming, okay? And that is, each one of us has what, I'll get her name in a second, has a concept for ourselves of what is our upper limit that we will feel comfortable with, we will believe is possible for us, where we would be comfortable. And the upper limit is how much happiness we are able to allow ourselves. What is your upper limit of the amount and the kind of happiness that you will allow yourself? Because remember, we pretty much do what we want to do and what we feel safe and worthy of, right? And maybe that goal, look at it and ask yourself, are there any component parts to that goal that I asked you to set at the outset of this podcast? To be aware of, to name, are there any parts of that goal that are outside the limit, the upper limit of what you can actually conceive of being possible for you about happiness? Most of us will only allow ourselves to feel. It was Gay Hendricks, Gayhendricks, wrote a book about and coined the phrase the upper limit of our okayness with happiness. Our upper limit is essentially the amount of good that we will allow ourselves to feel comfortable having in our life. It's almost like a tolerance and a threshold that we allow it. We might be capable, there might be a whole lot more out there to have, but we're not going to see it, and we're not going to allow ourselves to experience it. As for having positive feelings, experiencing the positive in events that are a mixed bag, because when we start to surpass our upper limit, we start to unconsciously hold ourselves back. And we can actually start to sabotage what's happening, not in big ways, just in little ways, all right, in order to bring ourselves back to what's comfortable, to what's familiar, to what is acceptable to us, okay? And it can show up, that distraction, that thing that pulls you back, the things that gets in the way, can be things like aches, pains, headaches, physical tension, emotional issues, resistance through anger, reaction, guilt, fear. All right. And as contradictory as it sounds, we are not really wired to be boundlessly happy. Our wiring as human beings, we're capable of it. We should really fight that resistance, okay? We really need to pound that resistance into submission, because there's a lot of good and a lot of happiness to have. All right, but first we have to see it. So this week, your homework, should you choose to accept it, all right, is to name your feelings, name the things that appear to be unknown mysteries. You know that little thing you go, what? Like I did in the email this morning. Well, what is it? What is it? And I had to do a little work before this podcast. Oh, that's what it is. I never did well with that. And I don't intend to get any better at doing well with that. Okay. So it's how you set healthy boundaries and limits early, too. You don't let that little thing that gets under your skin that isn't healthy. All right. Maybe attitudes, behaviors of others. You don't let that get right under your skin and understand it. So it's wonderful. No, it isn't. You just stop it dead in its tracks. All right. If it's unhealthy, you stop it dead in its tracks. But you name it. You see it, you name it. Then I want you to name the things that get in your way. That way, with a name, and I want you to do one more thing. The negatives and the positives, name. Okay? Or the mysteries, too. Name. Dig, dig, dig. Name. Then I want you to stop for a second. And I want you to ask yourself, where did that show up in me? And how did it show up? So I knew this morning that, yeah, that was a non-starter. Whatever that was, it probably took me about 10 or 15 minutes to kind of peel the layers back and go, yeah, no, that's what it is. All right. And I knew it because I felt it right here. Now, there'll be a lot of other things that I might feel here, or I might feel there. If you name it and identify personally, uniquely, where that registers for you. Okay, and what that feels like. What is the feeling and where did it register? Right? You're not going to have so many things sneak up on you because right out of the gate, you'll be either able to say, I accept you and I bring you in and I will work on being able to work with that. Okay, I will grow, I will advance, I will change. All right. Or that's a non-starter. That requires a healthy boundary and limit. Not my monkey. I have to tell you that story sometime about not my monkey. Not my monkey, not playing. No. Okay, can you do that? Can you do that this week? How many people here? Michael, are you shaking your head? Don't say that. How many people here think that they can do that? They can identify positive. Where did you feel it? Where did it register? And they can identify the mystery. They'll say, what? What was that? How did you feel it? Where did it register? And the negative. The negatives particular because you want to clear those right out of the gate. You want to clear them right off the table with healthy boundaries and limits. You don't want to be giving your moving forward energy to dealing with someone else's negative need for something that they really need to do the work for. Good. How many people? I've got 33. Can I see everybody right now putting a Y or an N, a yes or a no, a Y or an N in the chat box? I have how many people here right now? I have 30 people here right now. So this is going to go up to roughly 66. Mission impossible. Assignment accepted. 49, 50. Are we stopping at 50? 51. Good. Hold on, everybody. We'll get to 66. Wire in. We seem to have stalled out at 51. All right. The rest of you who didn't put your Y, oh, there's 52. The rest of you who didn't put, all right, your wire in, think about it. Think about it. This is your life. Okay. Okay, everybody. You take care. Make it a good one. We'll see you next week.